Andrew, as we're doing this show, how many text messages are flying in from the Thrive Nation right now?
Right now, it's averaging about 5 per minute.
5 texts per minute. And by the way, if you're listening to today's show and you want irrefutable proof that what we're saying on today's show is in fact true, just fire us off a text to 918-851-6920. And when I say us, myself and Andrew will be responding to you personally.
Right.
That's my cell phone number, 918-851-6920. And on today's show, we are interviewing a great patriot by the name of George Papadopoulos, who was recently pardoned by the President of these United States. And on today's show, he joins us to share the truth about what actually happened with the 2020 election. And he shares with us about his new book titled Deep State Target. Again, folks, if you want to know about the deep state and you want to know what it's like to be a deep state target, you're going to want to hear this interview with the recently pardoned George Papadopoulos. But before we play today's show play today's interview with George Papadopoulos, I thought I'd play some of the B-roll, some of the outtakes of us trying to pronounce George Papadopoulos' name for the first time, because we were new to the name.
We are new.
We were not new to his game, but we saw him on Twitter. We've seen him all over the air everywhere, but we hadn't really practiced his name before.
That's true.
And so I'm going to cue up B-roll of you and I practicing before the show, trying to say the name George Papadopoulos.
God.
All right, Andrew, as my speech coach, I think you're about ready to hear me pronounce the name for today's show guest.
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Because you don't want to make a mistake on the air, so I appreciate you joining me here to practice.
Absolutely.
His name is George Papadopoulos.
So close. It's Papadopoulos.
George Papadopoulos.
You're really almost there, but it's Papadopoulos.
George Papadopoulos.
Really close.
I have like a mental block. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, it's George Papadopoulos.
Okay, here we go. Jorge Papadopoulos.
So close.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we'll show you how to get here.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have a guest who recently received a pardon from the President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. George, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Thanks so much for having me. Doing great.
George, you know, you're kind of famous on Twitter. Everybody's tweeting you, and you know at least half of the American population is mispronouncing your name. So let's go ahead and clear the controversy. Let's get that out of the way. What's the proper pronunciation of your last name there, sir?
It's not Stephanopoulos, it's Papadopoulos.
Okay, there we go. That settles that. There's many husbands and wives who've been debating that for months. So first off, how did it feel when you received news of the pardon?
Look, it was an incredible moment, and I was just really hanging out with my wife, having a kickback day on the sofa, watching a little TV, getting ready for Christmas, and all of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up. I get messages from every journalist you could possibly imagine, asking me, how it went down, what happened, were you expecting this? I wasn't expecting it. Obviously a pardon is it's not a right, it's a privilege. So I wasn't somebody who was out there really trying to lobby on my behalf. I just wanted the facts about my situation to speak for themselves. I think the president listened to it, his team listened, I was pardoned, and it was a great moment.
Did you get a call from the president? Did you get an email from his staff? How does that happen?
No, actually, I was getting some hints from a lot of people in the media that it was coming, but I directly made sure I stayed out of any potential lobbying to the White House or the president or his team, because I never wanted my situation to be viewed as political for the president, to be used against or for him. I just wanted the truth to get out there, and that's why I was just very happy the way it actually went down.
Now, I know that you're an articulate guy, and I'm not saying our listeners are not intelligent. I just want to kind of bridge the gap. A lot of our listeners are focused on how to grow a business. They listen to this show for truth about how to grow a business, how to create time freedom and financial freedom. But a lot of them have recently discovered they don't have freedom to even have their business open. And that's why we've started covering the politics. And so we have millions of listeners. And it's and in as simple of terms as that maybe I can understand, can you explain to me what you were accused of versus what you did? I mean, what's the truth of the situation for people that maybe don't know the whole situation?
Yeah, look, I'll just, I'm a plain spoken kind of guy myself.
Great.
So I'll explain it like that. Basically what the situation was, and this is all backed up now by a lot of these files that have been declassified. There was essentially an effort to make me a fall guy of some nature along with some of the others by setting me up with informants and people that were masquerading as something that they were not. And one of those individuals who was brought into my life was brought up during my FBI interview. And I basically told the FBI, yeah, this guy said something shady to me, but you guys should look into him. And instead of the FBI saying, oh, look, he's trying to help us and, he's doing his patriotic duty, they said that I misremembered when I met somebody and then they charged me with lying. And it was just a very bizarre situation that I covered extensively in the book. And if people really want to understand the A to Z of that, it's all in there. But essentially what it was misremembering when I met somebody and the FBI throwing me in a jail cell without me understanding why until the special counsel was appointed.
What were you You were charged with perjury, is that correct?
That was the actual charge. Perjury, lying to the FBI, whatever you want to call it.
And so tell the listeners about the name of your book and what they can find in your book, because apparently this book is so controversial, people didn't want people to read it.
Yeah, so the book is called Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump. And what this book actually highlights and explains is an insider viewpoint into a counter real narrative that was never presented to the American public through the mainstream media about what happened during the 2016 campaign, who some of the key figures were. And I just really bring the viewers and the readers, I should say, into the room with me while I was having these very bizarre, serious, almost spy-like, if you will, meetings that thrust me into this scandal that we have barely recovered from as a country.
Why did you decide to write the book? Why did you decide to cover all this? I mean, what's your background before really diving deep into sharing the truth with American people? Are you a guy that loves the controversy? Do you come from an investigative journalist background? I just want to introduce the listeners to your background.
Look, my background, if you asked me 3 years or 5 years ago if I believed in conspiracies and the deep state and that this could have been happening to American citizens, I would have probably laughed at you, because I actually come from a pretty establishment type of background in D.C. I worked with a lot of George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, and Reagan officials, almost like a lobbyist in the think tank world. And then I ventured off into the private sector in the energy business.
Got it.
So that was my world, at the Hudson Institute. That was my world. And, I would have never imagined, based on that background, that what happened to me actually did happen. But it all happened, I guess, because I decided to leave that space and join a couple renegade presidential campaigns. So
you recently tweeted out, that there's the list of lawmakers who will object to the Electoral College certification on the 6th continues to grow. Again, for listeners out there, and this is how I feel, and I'm not. I'll just use my life as an example. Every year, I go vote. I vote. I look. There's an R or a D. Republican, Democrat. I know about the candidates, and I choose one. I don't think a lot of people recognize that in some cases, if you choose left or you choose right, you choose Democrat or you choose Republican, you might not get to choose who you thought you chose. And even if the people vote a certain way, they might not get the candidate they want because the Dominion election machines, the Dominion hardware that is used in many, many U.S. elections, that company is a Canadian company with Chinese parts in the machines. The company shares office space with George Soros. Eric Coomer, the head of strategy and security, as an outspoken member of Antifa. Your votes are then, the Smartmatic and the Sequoia software was developed by communists, and that software allowed Hugo Chavez to get in power. That's on American voting machines. Your votes are then shipped to Frankfurt, Germany, where they can switch the votes. It's crazy. So help us understand why this is important, that there's lawmakers willing to object to the Electoral College certification. I just think a lot of people don't understand what that means.
Well, you did a great job explaining what the scandal is and what the president and his allies have been trying to expound upon for so many months now since the election. And because it's exactly right, there seems to have been major widespread fraud based on this Dominion voting software, which was used in 30 states and in 2,000 different districts, precincts, I should say. And look, let's actually remember how we even got to this position where we're questioning the integrity of our electoral process. The economy was in a positive trajectory. We had historic unemployment rates. We had then this impeachment effort to try and undermine the president, which failed. That was after, of course, the special counsel failed. So what happened? Coronavirus emerged. We had this drive towards mail-in voting, which we know is rife with fraud, and Dominion software, which has recently been proven to have switched votes in many districts and many states.
True.
That's what the president is talking about. This isn't a conspiracy. It's simply about full and accurate transparency to assure that we have a free and fair election. That's what the president's talking about. I don't understand what the scandal's about. And that's why these Republican senators now and congressmen have decided that they will object to the certification of the Electoral College on the 6th. And it might actually come down to what Vice President Mike Pence does or does not do that decides this race.
I want to make sure people understand the definition of the word conspiracy, because words can be hijacked. I mean, God, if you are a literal believer of the Bible, you would know that God, he says, hey, here's a rainbow. It's a sign I'm never going to flood the earth again. And then organizations take over the definition of the word rainbow. The word conspiracy is a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. So that would be like if you caught your kids eating the cookies. I have 5 kids. If you catch your kids eating the cookies and you said, kids, did you eat the cookies? And they said, Dad, that's just a cookie theory. I mean, you caught somebody doing something and they just name it something. But the word conspiracy is a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. I don't think most people know that they went to vote on a Canadian machine with Chinese parts, Dominion, who shares office space with George Soros. I don't think people recognize the software Smartmatic Sequoia can switch votes. I don't think anybody knows that your votes went to or knew your votes went to Frankfurt, Germany to be stored on Amazon servers. And I don't think anybody knows that in Barcelona the votes were tabulated. Nobody knows these things. Patrick Byrne knows these things, the head of Overstock.com, who we've had on our show. You know these things. But now let's just say that certain members of the lawmaking body, they decide to not certify the vote. Then it goes to Pence. Pence card. Pence. Mike Pence, vice president. The Pence card. There's been a lot of talk about the Pence card. Why do you believe that Vice President Pence has not played the Pence card up until now? And will you explain how he could have played the Pence card previous to now? Because some people don't understand that.
Well, Vice President Mike Pence has actually been one of President Trump's most ardent supporters publicly about this particular issue of voter fraud. And Mike Pence, Vice President Mike Pence, has actually stated that he will object to anything that he believes was outright fraud. So moving past those public statements, he does have the opportunity now to refute and not certify the Electoral College in particular states. There will be an open debate based simply on one senator objecting to the certification on the 6th. And the Pence card essentially will mean that Vice President Pence has the opportunity to either reject those votes or to accept them. If he accepts them, I'm under the impression that his political career in the Republican Party is over. I'm not sure that that's something that he would like to happen to himself, but if he's viewed by millions of Trump supporters, which I'm of the belief that Donald Trump has redefined and redesigned the Republican Party,
True.
He won't belong to that particular faction of the Republican movement anymore. So he will have to deal with that uncertain political future if he decides to not play that card. It's not blackmail, of course. It's not something that he feels that he has a gun to his head to do. But when you just look at the political landscape today, that's where we are as a country. It's
I would
very polarized.
I would like to be the crazy person who reads definitions, and then you can calm me down and maybe point out this guy's crazy. So the definition of the word treason is the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign or overthrow the government. President Trump has asked Governor Kemp of Georgia to look at the signatures on the ballots, do signature verification. America, especially the Americans that voted for President Trump, are asking Vice President Pence to not certify an election when we have irrefutable. I mean, if anybody listening right now doubts me, please fire me off a text right now. This goes direct to my cell phone. You're not supposed to do this on a podcast, but I do this often. My cell phone, 918-851-6920. We've had hundreds of thousands of you do this. I'm telling you, take the Is Clay Clark Crazy Challenge. Text me, 918-851-6920, and I will send you irrefutable evidence of fraud that Lynn Wood has gathered, that Roger Stone has gathered. These are my friends, Lynn Wood, Roger Stone, Sidney Powell, who I don't know, but I feel like I know her because Lynn speaks of her so highly all the time. Sidney has produced, George, a 270-page document that shows irrefutable evidence of voter fraud. We've had the head of eBay Security talk about the voter fraud, document the voter fraud. We've had Patrick Byrne, the founder of Overstock.com, verify there's voter fraud. There's irrefutable evidence, video, thousands of affidavits. That, to me, would seem to be the crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to overthrow the government if you're trying to steal an election. Is that treason in your mind, or am I out of my mind, George?
You're not out of your mind at all. That's the proper definition of what treason is, and the action behind it that you just laid out was a perfect example of what treason looks like in modern day America. Technology impacting the vote and the media covering up for that deception. That's what this looks like. It's the unfortunate situation that we live in this very polarized country that we live in, and the moment and politics the way they are. But that's why this is so important to get right, because if this does not get right this time, what stops us from continuing in the 2022 midterms, the 2024 presidential election, and the Republicans might never have another chance of winning again. This might actually all be predetermined. Your vote might not matter at all whatsoever. If you get out there and you stand in the snow and or the cold, if you're in a certain state to vote, and then Smartmatic or Dominion can just say, well, we don't want this to happen. We have an algorithm that doesn't match what we thought was going to happen, so we're just going to switch your vote. That's what the president has alleged. That's what his team has alleged. Sidney Powell is a very reputable, respected attorney. She has filed these affidavits.
Yes.
And they want to present it to court. Why the court does not want to hear it is scandalous.
George, I know that you're going to be speaking on January 6th. Charlene Bollinger reached out to ask me to speak. Roger Stone has asked. He'll be speaking there. A lot. It seems like the remnant. It seems like all of the patriots are gathering in one place. I know I can't wait to meet you, shake your hand in person there. What do you expect to happen on January 6th?
It's going to become a deplorable city, if you will. And I take that, and I love that word, and I feel that I'm a deplorable. I'm a proud deplorable myself. So
yeah.
When Hillary Clinton called us all deplorables, that was a badge of honor to me. I think we're going to see a red city. The city's going to be filled with millions of patriots out there. It's going to get loud. It's going to get rambunctious, and the president and Vice President Pence are going to look out those windows. They're going to see those millions of patriots out there, and I hope Vice President Pence does the right thing, not for the sake of this administration, but for the sake of the democratic process, the election system in this country, and for the country first and foremost.
Now, if you're listening, Vice President Pence, and we know there is a few people in the White House who listen to this show. We know that because we've had some connections there. I would just say, Vice President Pence, I would not say that you are committing treason currently, but I would say that anybody that knowingly certifies a vote where there has been widespread industrial level, intentional, nefarious, communist-inspired fraud, who certifies that vote is committing treason. So I encourage you to make the right decision. Now, my final question I have for you, because I want to respect your time, I do want to have you on again after we get past the 6th, because I want to have a longer form interview and really get into your book, because there's so much in there. On December 18th, you tweeted out, or you said, today would be a good day to release the rest of the president the rest of the files the president has declassified. Today would be a good day to release the rest of the files that the president has declassified. What else in terms of declassification do you see coming in the coming days?
Well, every day or every week that passes, there's some sort of declassified file that comes out that just showcases how corrupt the spying scandal really was into a rival presidential campaign, including just 10 days ago or so, approximately when I tweeted that, we learned that the FBI was illegally wiretapping me and the vice president of Fox News while I was on the campaign. So that's a major scandal. That in itself is a major scandal. We also have evidence based on other declassified documents that Vice President Biden was directly involved in setting up General Flynn. How far up does this actually go? How many more files need to be declassified for the American public to really find out who Joe Biden is as a citizen, first and foremost, and what his behavior was that undermined the smooth transition of power in 2016, and how that will impact him as a potential president. All of this stuff should have been out before the election. I think it was a major mistake of AG Barr not to release this stuff, and even to show to the American public that Hunter Biden was under criminal investigation. Those are just some of the documents that have come out recently that have really changed a lot of minds, including Democrats. And I think the more transparency, the better, because there should be no one above the law in this country. And certainly if Vice President Biden did commit some sort of crime like his son has alleged, we need that information out there.
And I'll say this: we're virtual right now, so I would like to give you a hug here, but I can't. But I really do appreciate you seriously fighting the fight and putting in the tireless. When you're a patriot, the pay's low, the hours are long, and all we get is the freedom that we already had. It's kind of like when you spend all day looking for your wallet. You've already had the wallet. You've already owned the wallet. You just can't find it. You're like, where's my keys? Where's my wallet? And when you find it, you just recover what you already had, and you're fighting for the basic freedoms, those inalienable, God-given rights that we've enjoyed as Americans for so long. And I mean that. I know you've had a lot of sleepless nights. You've had a lot of threats, a lot of targeting, and I can't tell you enough. Thank you. And I'd love to have you on in the future here, in the near future, for a longer interview where we can really unpack your new book, Deep State Target, if that's okay. I'd like to do that. But I also respect your time headed into this a big event on January 6th. And I'll see you there. I'll be with Charlene Bollinger and Pastor Dave Scarlett, Brian Locke, our Pastor Greg Locke, Pastor Brian Gibson. I think General Flynn's speaking on that stage. So we'll run into each other, and I can't wait to have you on again.
Absolutely. And I just saw Pastor Locke in Pasadena a couple days ago. Great guy. We'll be seeing each other again on the 6th. I'm looking forward to meeting you too. Thank you so much for this. It was a real honor, and keep doing the great things that you're up to.
Congratulations on the pardon, my friend. You deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So happy for you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.